Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. We have a very special guest today from Florida who is running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz in Florida's 23rd district, I believe, is Jen Perelman. Jen, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. So first of all, how dare you go up against the Democratic establishment? I think it's great you're running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. First of all, I know you're a lawyer, but give us a little background into what got you to this place to decide to run against her.
I started out as a journalism person. So originally I actually wanted to be a journalist. I went to school to be a journalist and then ended up selling my soul and going into advertising for a period of time. Yeah. And then that led to marketing masters, which then led me to being the media relations manager. I believe I was the media relations manager for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. And when I was doing that, I was doing a lot of work over at the State House and arranging press conferences with the governor and watching our lobbyists. And, you know, I wasn't necessarily on the same page with Chamber of Commerce positions, but I just realized that that was something I was kind of interested in. So I've always been following the politics. In 2016, I actually Dem exited, and I was done with that, and really have only recently come back, realizing, especially in this district, that it's the only way to do what we need to do because of closed primaries here. So it's the only way to run against her successfully is in the primary as a Democrat.
Okay. So, yeah. So obviously, yeah, you saw when the Podesta emails came out and she was fired as the head of the DNC and then immediately hired by the Clinton campaign, which was basically just
shocking.
Yeah. Hillary going, hey, everybody out there working for me, I'll protect you. You won't get, nothing will happen to you, which is what that was. Yeah. And so now tell us who you are, what your platform is, first of all, and how you can beat this woman that is so entrenched. Because I live in California, and a bunch of people in 2018 tried to primary Dianne Feinstein, who is very corporate. She loves talking down to Girl Scouts when they want to change the climate. But many in California just, well, we vote, you know, Dianne, she's ours. She's our Democrat. I'm just going to vote for her because I always see her name on the ballot. I'm not going to do much research about other people primarying her. So how, first of all, give us your platform, and then how are you going to overcome that?
Okay. My platform is a very progressive platform. I'm single payer, Medicare for all, no duplicative services from private insurance companies. I support a Green New Deal, which and everything that entails. I am completely against the income inequality problem in this country. And another real big issue for me is criminal justice reform and abolishing for-profit prisons. I believe in the decriminalization of marijuana. I support ending all of the regime change wars. I think our military budget should be half, if even that. And we need to invest in our own country. And I also am pro-labor.
Well, that's horrible. All those things.
I know.
What are you doing trying to help the majority of the people in this country and the world? That's really, you know, good luck. Yeah. But all jokes aside, though, all of the things you've mentioned, which I'm obviously for, the majority of the viewers of this show are for, but we all know the private prison industry, the military-industrial complex, the healthcare lobby, big pharmaceutical, the oil lobby, they spend billions of dollars, literally, to make sure that these things that you and other progressives that are fighting for will not happen. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is a fantastic recipient of these corporate dollars, and she literally knows how to cheat. I mean, she's a very skilled cheater. She, you know, when you ask her a direct question about the Podesta emails and why she was fired, she says, let's not relitigate 2016, and then immediately pivots to Russia, Russia, Russia. So we can relitigate 2016 if it's about Russia's meddling, but we can't talk about the DNC. I point all that out.
No, you can't talk about that.
Yeah, to point out the ridiculous hypocrisy. So you're up against a big machine. How do you plan to do this with the people? I saw you in an interview with Jordan Sheridan on Status Quo, which I love Jordan in that show, and you mentioned that the older people in that district don't care about single payer Medicare for all because they already got theirs. So how do you, and those are the people that typically vote in every election, no matter what, and they'll just vote for Debbie because they always have. So how are you going to combat that?
Okay, I think that the thing with Debbie is a unique situation for a few reasons. I think that even when you were talking before about Dianne Feinstein, I don't think that she raises the level of ire in people to the extent that Debbie Wasserman Schultz does in terms of being able to raise funds. I mean, it's like, I'm not a fan of Dianne Feinstein, but I don't think that she has, certainly not amongst the Bernie crowd, is not as enraging.
Right.
So I think that for all the people that do like Debbie in this district, there's a lot of people that don't. And our strategy is really bringing in people that are not necessarily traditional, typical voters, people that have felt left out, people who felt disenfranchised, and bringing a lot of those people in. But then the other side of it with Debbie is that the fact that I am a native Jewish person to this district, a lot of the advantage in this district of running with a Jewish surname and having that familiarity is something that I have, that she can't, that's not a card she can play with me. So in a lot of cases, for example, I'm very involved with the JCC in our district, as is she. So she and I are essentially, one person removed in the Jewish community. And so there are a lot of people, and it's unfortunate that this is the case, that do support her because she's a nice Jewish girl from here. That's the perception, and it's a tribal mentality. And so there is a certain advantage that I also have in being part of the tribe. So I think a lot of those people weren't ever presented with another option that they felt as comfortable with. And they haven't in the past had that. So I think that is part of it. And in addition to that, we now have a different supervisor of elections here who is a Republican appointed SOE. And I've met him a couple of times, and I feel very comfortable with his level of competence, for one. And two, he has no vested interest in Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Whereas our last supervisor of elections, they were friends. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a combination of factors that make this almost like a perfect storm opportunity.
Okay, so let's go into the specifics. How specifically are you going to go to these people in this Florida's 23rd district that feel disenfranchised? How are you going to how are you going to outreach to them? How are you going to get them to maybe even vote for the first time or even register to vote? And like, how are you going to overcome their like, it doesn't matter, I'm going to get cheated either way, which is a lot of disenfranchised people are like, it doesn't, my vote doesn't count. How are you going to do that?
I've actually been doing this since January. Okay. And in such a way that, and the way we're going to continue to do this is going to be a service-driven campaign. So people that volunteer for us are going to be out in the community volunteering for local nonprofits. So we're going to just be out there in that community. But in terms of, let's say, for example, the Black community here, I've been involved in so many ways, whether it's being an adult in the room for the Black Lives Matter Youth Assembly, whether it's that I do criminal justice work and have worked with returning citizens that have just gotten their rights back to vote. It's just something I have been entrenching myself in for 10 months now already. So I feel like there's a lot of ways. I mean, tonight we have an event for a local organization called the Mobile School Pantry that I volunteer for and I've been affiliated with. And that goes out into the community and feeds people that don't have food. So it's really the way to get out into the community is to be helping in the community. So that's essentially what we're doing.
Well, that's fantastic. So you're using pre-existing non-for-profit organizations that are already working in the community on a street level. And if I'm not mistaken, did not Florida just pass in 2018 that criminals can vote or something to that effect?
Yeah, we passed it by amendment. I mean, we had a constitutional amendment that 64% of the voters in this state supported. And then, of course, the legislature that is very Republican dominated added additional contingencies on it that weren't even necessary, basically to undermine the vote of 64% of the people. Now they're, of course, talking where they can raise the percentage to 66.2% in order for an amendment to pass now, because it used to be 51 and then we were passing things. And so, but yeah, returning citizens can now, I don't even like that term. They didn't go anywhere. So I don't know, but we refer to them as returning citizens. They now can get their rights back. And Florida was one of a handful of states that had a lifetime ban.
So this is a way, as part of the overall prison reform and criminal justice reform that you've been working in, is to, because this is part of the thing, and that some people might not understand. You get arrested for something, and more than likely, if you're in lower income, you're assigned a public defender, and then you're encouraged to plea deal. So you're admitting guilt. So you're in prison, you have a criminal record, now you can't vote, now that is on every job application, and the likelihood of recidivism is highly increased under those circumstances. So what this, and correct me if I'm wrong here, then giving someone the right to vote and reintegrating them back into society rather than having to stay underneath in the sort of off-the-books criminal world, or even just the under-the-table world because they can't get a regular job. How is this going to help, and is this a big part of how you're going to reach out to those that feel disenfranchised?
I think it's all connected. I think it's being present and being accountable in communities where most people don't ever go and are not accountable. I think that's just builds a level of trust, and people are willing to, come out and help. So, I've made some really good inroad connections on a personal level in communities where someone like Debbie would never be able to go. And it's just, I actually really enjoy the work I'm doing. So, but the key, it's so much worse than just even adults, because we have this thing down here called direct file, which is children being charged as adults, which is actually a big policy issue I'm working on in the state. We go as young as 14 years old. It doesn't even have to be a violent crime. It could be burglary, and then you charge somebody as an adult, and that is it. They are in the system. They're never. It's permanent, because then it's the same thing where they can't get jobs, they can't get housing, they can't, And as another issue, I actually don't believe that someone's right to vote should be tied to any of these things at all. So I actually agree with states. There's a handful of states, or a couple of states, that have where incarcerated people can still vote. I find those to be completely unrelated issues. I think that so we have a right to vote, but there's nowhere that says that could just be taken away when somebody convicts you of a crime. Like I've never seen those as kind of, one and the same. But in any event, they're still trying in this state to really keep the people that we gave that right to in the election. They're still trying to keep them from doing it.
Okay, so Tim Canova, who I interviewed briefly on this show when Ron Placone and I did the Progressive Comedy Tour in Miami last January, was on the show. He was cheated, 6 ways from Sunday. He was very vocal about it, and it still was hard to overcome. How are you going to deal with that when, because they're going to try to cheat you if they haven't already. I mean, they're gonna do all these crooked tactics. How are you going to combat that? Because I think, and I preface this question with I think it's a problem sometimes with progressives, as we all have these amazing ideals, which is wonderful, and you like the work you're doing. You actually want to make a difference in the world, not just get power and money and office. Yeah. But then we're fighting against people that have no. Debbie Wasserman Schultz has no moral compass. She has no ethics. She will do whatever it takes to win. And so how do we? It's hard to let's let the system work in our favor when it's completely rigged for the ruling class's favor. So how are you going to deal with that if you haven't already encountered it?
I kind of look at it like, every once in a while somebody slips through, I mean, we went from something like 9 to 40 non-corporatists between, I think, 16 and 18. So people are trickling in as more and more people are realizing that the system is rigged and that their politicians are completely bought and paid for. So I think, now we're 3 years later than when Tim ran in 16, and a lot has happened in 3 years, not the least of which is a certain amount of people that are paying attention because of the evil, scary Trump monster that they perceive as the root of all evil. But as a result, I think that there are infinitely more people that are aware and are participating, even if their reasons for participating aren't, let's, save the collective like mine is. There's just more people that are in the pool. And so I think that's better. But ultimately, this is just a campaign really of getting regular people in office. And that's my personal goal, is if this something that we pull this off and I get in there, there is nothing I want more than publicly financed elections. And, you know, that to me is the only way to get in that direction. And it isn't just overturning Citizens United. I mean, we talk about that, but it's so much more than that. That was the final nail in the coffin. It was already a significant problem. So, I mean, I think we should have 3-month election cycles and publicly financed elections. So, you know, anything I can do, and the amount of money that this wastes on all of this it's offensive to me. Even just the debates, to me, it makes me think of Stanley Tucci in the Hunger Games. And, you know, it's like
sports. It's like, I mean, look, the NBA season is 6 months long, and then there's 2 months of playoffs. That's what an 18-month election cycle is. I mean, I just covered the debates on Tuesday, and they literally, CNN at one of the commercial breaks had ads for professional wrestling. Like, if it was not the most clear-cut view of what
it's very telling. It's very telling. Yeah, I think it's ludicrous. I think it's a complete way. I think the conventions I think all of these things are just a show and a circus that are just making the media people even wealthier than they are. And there's no purpose. First of all, 12 people can barely have a conversation, let alone a debate. So that isn't even a debate. So we need to even stop calling that. It's not a debate. It's a presentation or some sort of like planned panel discussion. I don't know. Now, if there were to actually be a debate, that I actually might find interesting. That might be actually good. Like, I'd love to watch a Bernie Trump debate. That would be awesome.
Well,
you know, like a real debate would be good.
Yeah, and that's what it should be. It should be. So like when I see people like Pete Buttigieg go, we shouldn't be arguing. I'm like, no, this is a debate. I want to know where you stand. I don't know. And you think this Democratic debate, you watch this, like that's like a bunch of puppies fighting over a chew toy compared to what Trump's going to do to you. Watch what he did in the Republican primaries. He came in and he blew that party up. The Republican establishment did not want him. So, but I want to touch on, and you bring up a great point about you think there's going to be this groundswell, and I agree with you. The AOC, the gang, right? So all of them, except for I forget her name in Michigan, has an openly.
Ayanna Pressley, I think, wasn't in that group, right?
She wasn't in that group. So 3 of the 4 of them, but they all won on a grassroots progressive campaign, and no one saw them winning. Everyone's like, what? And all of them defeated.
And they got through.
They got through. They defeated entrenched Democratic incumbents, all of them. And look at the power of this. So, you know, we see the corruption when you look at the difference between Warren and Bernie. So Warren's daughter gives $45,000 to Working Families Party, and they endorse Liz Warren. And everybody thinks all these progressive women are going to fall in line with the ridiculous identity politics notion. And then they go, no, we're going to vote based on policy, based on Bernie's record. You know, when Bernie was fighting for all of these things 30 years ago, Liz Warren was a Republican. So I think, and I want to say this really to the viewers here, why they should get behind you is because if you do break through, that's another, you would be like another type AOC, and then look at the power that they have just by backing Bernie. This is a game changer. This is like...
Yeah, it's inspiring, but I also think, you know, if for whatever reason, you know, and I can't help but being cynical. I know you appreciate that, and I can't, you know, cynical much. So I can't help it, but let's just say Bernie was able to get through. He's the only person that would even be able to have a debate with Trump that would even be worth it. And Trump, the rest of them,
he would eat them alive.
I mean, it'll be entertaining.
Yeah.
It'll, you know, like a cat with a mouse or a lizard or something. But, you know, if Bernie was able to get through, he's going to need people more of than the 40 or however many there are. So, you know, it just seems like there could be the timing. And even if it is Warren, and even if she got through, which, you know, who knows, obviously the more progressive people to hold her sort of accountable would still be better than, I mean, she might be a scenario where I actually could see a lesser of evils where I haven't in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with I don't, the centrism will lose again like it does in 2016. Yes. I think like that's, I don't think that'll win. And I think, anyway, but when people say, who are like, yeah, but even if Bernie wins, how can he get anything accomplished? I say, well, first of all, his whole cabinet will be progressive. And then there will be more people especially in the 2022 midterms, to get more people such as yourself and AOC to help get them. And then maybe the Senate can actually be overtaken with a majority of progressives, and not just any blue will do. I am so against that, because we've already seen the Democratic Party has control of Congress, and yet Pelosi and the gang signed off on Trump's border wall, and they acquiesced to him at every corner. So it's not just any blue will do. It has to be a real progressive, such as yourself.
It has to be someone that's not on the corporate payroll and isn't in it for their career. It has to be those two things. When I started this, the main thing I always thought was it's just about the corporate money and getting the corporate money out. And that is huge. But it isn't just that. It has to be someone who sees it as a term of service and not a career. Because as soon as you see it as a career, even if you're not taking corporate money, then you still have your own, whatever your agenda is, that still may or may not coincide with whoever you're representing.
Right.
So that's, to me, the fundamental principle and of my thoughts on running is to just, we cannot have people sitting in a term of public service as a career. It just doesn't work.
That's a great point.
So many ways.
Well, Jen, I really appreciate your time. So where can people go? Anybody living in Florida, in your district, or even just anywhere in the country or world that wants to support a real progressive and help a real progressive punch through? That's how AOC punched through. People all over the country and the world got behind her. So where can people go to see more in depth about what your platform is, and how can they get involved in what you're doing?
Okay, well, the first thing is everyone can go to jen2020.com. So it's Jen with one N, 2020.com. And there people can sign up to volunteer, even if it's somebody who wants to help us with social media. We also really need help financially. We need donations. We are asking for $23 a month for District 23, hoping that this will be a very, grassroots funded campaign. I have this dream that if I could get all of Bernie's volunteers to donate $1 a month, if I could get Bernie's volunteers to donate $1 a month to oust the person who cheated Bernie, there would be such a poetic justice to this whole thing. It would just be really cool. So I try to push that. And then we are also on Twitter and Instagram at JenFL23.
Okay, everybody. So I will put Jen's website in the show notes below. Go to that website and support. And this is the thing I talk about. I've been talking about it on this show for 2.5 years. Get involved on a local level. These are the things. It worked for AOC. It worked for the gang. It worked. And so this is another place. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is part of the political establishment, not just the Democratic, but part of the broken political, well, it's not broken. It's rigged for the ruling class. Yeah, it's nice and fixed for the ruling class, and it's broken for the 99%. So this is what I say to our viewers. This is a way to get involved, because I know all of us are alone in our apartments watching YouTube videos going, I feel like it's overwhelming. This is how we do it. Bernie has 1 million unique donors, right? And now he's endorsed by 3 of the 4 gang, and probably going to get the 4th one by Presley this weekend when he goes to Michigan. So back Jen, get involved. This is the way to defeat the corporate establishment and to actually have progressives take over, and make sure they're real progressives. Anyone can say, I'm a progressive. Just watch Liz Warren just repeat Bernie's things, and then she can't answer a direct question. Will taxes go up with your Medicare for all? Bernie goes, yeah, they'll go up this much, but I'll reduce your money by that much. So in the long run, you're going to save more money. It's that simple of an answer. She couldn't give it. Sorry, it's driving me crazy watching that debate. But so Jen, thank you so much for taking the time out to be on the show today. And
thanks for talking.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So thanks to everybody for watching. Like, subscribe, share these videos. YouTube has been throttling me. So go to patreon.com/GrahamElwood or rockfin.com/GrahamElwood, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform. And check out our tour dates. Ron Placone and I, Progressive Comedy Tour. Go to GrahamElwood.com. We're going to be back in Florida, and hopefully we'll be back down there helping Jen beat Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody.